brain hates you and it's about to prove it.
Slap him.
No, no, that is a stranger. That is someone's father. That is the shiniest head I ever seen in my life. Oh no. Sorry. Did you know in medieval Europe you could put a pig on trial? They did, multiple times. That's, yeah, another intrusive thought. How crazy. Crazy. Actually, and I don't want to freak you out, that joke has gotten people Shut up. People were actually born for that, for having a thought. But before talking about that, quick question. Have you ever been standing somewhere completely normal and your brain just went, what if I did something absolutely unforgivable right now? The French call that l'appel du vide. Or for normal people, they call it Sorry. Another intrusive thought. In English is named the call of the void. It is that urge to jump when you're somewhere high. Your brain made you step back from the edge, and then your conscious mind went, wait, hold on. Why did I step back if I wasn't going to? No, you didn't want to. Your brain scared you into being careful and then gaslight you about it. The reason you never heard this is because nobody announces it. Which, I mean, fair. But the difference between you and someone who actually does the thing is that you thought it, went, oh what the hell, that's just an intrusive thought, and move on. Like a normal, functional, beautifully brained person. Why are you not trash can? But here's the thing. For many years, if you were just minding your business, tending your crops, playing Minecraft, and surviving, whatever medieval people did, and suddenly thought out loud something completely unhinged, what if we wash our hands? The community consensus was, demon! Not, your brain generated an involuntary intrusive thought due to an hyperactive default mode network. No. Just demon. And look, I'm not even mad at them. That's actually a great explanation for something nobody understood. It's consistent, it's memorable. I mean, I see the same thing when somebody does that. So yeah, great branding, but the customer experience, however, not the greatest. This went on for a while. And then, as centuries do, things got worse. I mean, sorry, they evolved. Ladies and gentlemen, Sigmund Freud. Whoa, yeah, that guy rules. Yeah, he's cool. He was the father of psychoanalysis. The reason the word ego means what it means. And famously a man who had thoughts about Freud called intrusive thoughts obsessive neurosis, which sounds very legitimate and scientific. I gotta give you that. Respect. Now, his explanation for where they came from, well, it was that they originated from a psychological regression into the anal phase of psychosexual development. Now, I know what you're thinking. Does he actually mean the... Yeah, it's literally that. But his logic was, intrusive thoughts are a loss of mental control, and a loss of mental control means your psychology has regressed, gone backward, all the way to the earliest experience of control your brain ever had, which for every human that has ever lived was that. He published this in books that people purchase and read in public. What a shot! I like the guy. And I'm not even kidding, like, he's actually pretty cool. Look, he discovered all of this. But yeah, this part was maybe not the best. He missed by a little, dude. But hey, we went from you're possessed by evil to you're broken in a very specific and embarrassing way. That's progress for me. Nice. But here's the funny part. Decades before Freud showed up, two other guys had already mostly figured it out. In 1938, this guy did something that was completely radical in practice. What he did was just look at the patients and listen to them. Yeah, I know, that guy was crazy. And he noticed something strange. They were sharp, rational, fully aware their thoughts were absurd, just unable to stop having them. So a few decades later, this other guy gave the disorder its proper medical name. The German word he coined was, yeah, I'm not even gonna try it. Roughly, a thought that forces itself on you. So by 1877, the field had a name for it, a definition. But the real question was, why does this happen? So why? Your brain is running simulation. Same when your body has an immune system that fights off stress you'll never see, your brain has one that fights scenarios. It runs them constantly. What could go wrong? What's the worst outcome? And does it offline, in your imagination, so you don't have to learn the lesson by living through it. The same system that kept your ancestors alive is the same one that today, on a Tuesday afternoon, suggests, what if you stood up right now and just eat the report? It's not telling you to do it. It's a fire drill. And the reason it's so vivid, so specific, so uncomfortably detailed is that a vague disaster doesn't teach you anything. Your brain needs to see the whole thing, so it can file it under never. Your brain is, in its own way, trying to help. It's just that the way is, well, kind of bad. So your brain runs simulation to protect you. Got it. The obvious response, the human response, is to push the thought out. Pretend you didn't have it, get rid of it. Don't. In 1987, a Harvard psychologist named Daniel Wegner read a single sentence in a Dostoevsky essay that changed psychology forever. And it was, try not to think of a polar bear, and you will see that the worst thing will come to mind every minute. Wegner read that and thought, let's prove that. So he ran an experiment. Setup was simple. Talk out loud for 5 minutes about anything you want, but do not think about a white bear. If you do, ring this bell. So what was the result? Well, yeah. It happened on average more than once a minute, and what's funny is that when he then told them, okay, now you can think about it, they thought about it more than the people who'd been allowed to think about it the whole time. He called it the ironic process theory, which is ironic because right now, against my will, I literally cannot stop thinking about the name. And that happens because the way your brain checks whether you're not thinking about something is by thinking about it first. Imagine your brain puts a tiny security guard on duty. Make sure we don't think about white birds. Cool. Except his only tool is a giant flashing sign that says white birds. So every time he does his job, he becomes the reason it fails. Which is funny. That's why when you fight an intrusive thought and it comes back louder, you're not broken. You're just experiencing a perfectly normal and really dumb feature we all have. Woohoo! Anyway, there's a distinction in psychology that I find genuinely useful to know. Two kinds of thought. First, ego-dystonic. Those are the thoughts that fit you. They line up with your values, your sense of self, a song stuck in your head, the argument you keep winning in the shower, the thing you should have said 3 years ago. Annoying, sometimes embarrassing, but yours. Then there's the other kind, ego-dystonic. These thoughts don't just not fit, they are the opposite of you. They show up and your first reaction isn't even a question, it's shock. Because the content is so wrong, it feels handpicked, like someone put it in your head. Your brain doesn't throw these thoughts at you randomly. It chooses, based on what you love most, what you care about most, and what you could not, under any circumstances, survive the loss of. A parent who will do anything for their child. That parent is statistically more likely to experience intrusive thoughts about their child being harmed, not because they want it. It happens because their brain identified that child as the most important thing in their world, and then it asks the question it always asks: what's the worst thing that could happen? And it answered in detail. So here's what that thought actually is. It's a letter your brain drafted. A letter from you to you about the worst possible version of something you love. The more you love the thing, the more detailed the letter. And the reason it feels like it came from somewhere else, it's because you will never send it. You wrote it so you know exactly what you will never do. You never finish any of them. You never send any of them. You never would. That was never the point. The point was to imagine the worst thing clearly enough to recognize it as the worst thing, and then put the letter away. Every person who has ever loved anything has stood exactly where you're standing. Every single one of them thought they were the only one who'd ever drafted a letter this bad. Not one of them was. The thought wasn't you. It was you trying not to be. Okay, that got a little heavy. But now you know that the next time your brain hands you something you didn't ask for, that drop in your stomach, that's not the thought winning. That's you. That's always been you. Your thoughts are not instructions. They never were. They were just unsent letters.